Our next session is Bring Environmental Action into Your Classroom with WWF Youth Ambassador Hattie. Drawing on her experience organising a student climate conference, secondary school student Hattie outlines her top tips for raising awareness and driving change in your school community.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name's Matt Larson-Dorr. I'm the Education Manager for WWF UK, and we're joined by Hattie.
Hello, I'm Hattie. I'm a WWF Youth Ambassador, campaigning for the climate crisis and ecological emergency at school, but also in local areas as well.
So we're really excited to be involved in the Youth Climate Summit, and this session in particular, I think is really fantastic to be running. We're talking today about how students can bring about real impact through action at school, and Hattie's going to draw on some of her experience initiating things within school. So before we ask her to outline some of her previous experience and to draw out some of the learnings from that, I just thought it was really worth saying just how much impact you can have through action at school. I think it's tempting to feel when you're a young person that you're just kind of learning how you can have action, but actually the impact that you have will be something that happens when you're older. And that really isn't the case. And it's not just because school is where you happen to be, and therefore that's where you can actually do things. You have a huge opportunity because schools have a really important role in society and in communities. And if you can actually bring about something that happens at school, it can have a huge ripple effect. So it's not just a case of acting where you can and it not being as important as action you could do later on. It's actually a real opportunity to bring about change that not everyone has the chance to do. So what I mean by that really is if you think about all of the different facets of school life, and it's not just about coming to school, getting an education and then going home again. A school is a business, it has other companies and organizations working with it. You have a site, and you have all of the different families of the students that are at the school who understand what's going on at the school, hear about things, come in for events and so on. So there's this huge opportunity to actually drive change. So with that in mind, I'm hoping that all of you watching today or watching on the recording will be really excited to think about what you could do that can actually start this ripple effect of change through action in your school. So that's the context. Hattie, do you want to bring us to reality and talk to us a little bit about the things that you have started in your school?
Yeah, of course. So, like Matt said, it is quite hard doing it, and I'm not gonna lie. You know, there are some barriers and things you face, but I'm gonna go straight on and talk about the real change that's happened and that we've seen. But then there's also a lot about a change in mindset and how the school's mindset has changed to more environmental stuff. So the first thing that I really did was I ran a week of climate events last year in March. This was basically when all of the strikes were happening and all of the climate strikes and Fridays for Future. And I was very young at the time and it was all quite new and very exciting, but I was decided to do some activities in my school so that people who still wanted to feel like they were making a difference could do something within the school area. So we did I ran an assembly talking about how climate change can be affected in our local area. We live in a little town called Malden, and I go to a school called Malden's Plume Academy, and we live just on an estuary. So I spoke about the importance of how we can help in our local area and what impacts of climate change we will see so close to home. The school fully supported this, and it was a really great week to really kickstart everything from the students' point of view. This led on to a more of a community event, which was called a Climate Change the Last Straw. This was after lobbying my MP, John Whittingdale, quite a lot. And we decided, along with the help of the WI's Climate Ambassador Jill Bruce that we wanted to set up a public meeting to really share and discuss the effects of climate change. So this happened and I got to meet some amazing other speakers, and that was where I did my first speech. So it's one of a really important thing, and if you want to do something like this, I would say that's a really good thing to get your school on board with. My school was really good with this, and they fully catered everything and made it such an enjoyable opportunity. So some other things that have happened and some ideas that you could do to implement into your school is I ran a conference. Now, I'm not sure whether your school has a student leadership team. Lots of secondary schools do. So that's a good place to start if you'd like to find some other like-minded people. We had a school conference day for climate change where I spoke with the student leadership team, and we basically railed out everything, the ideas that we have and things we can do around the school. The main idea of it was to bring non-teaching staff and teaching staff and students together. As Matt, like you said, schools are big businesses, and there's a lot more to it than coming to school and learning. There are so many other teachers and non-teaching staff behind the scenes, and it was really important that we acknowledged this and acknowledged how they can help us. So, for example, we had the catering department talk to the maintenance team, because the waste produced is what the maintenance team deal with, and then that links onto the recycling. So we had green recycling come in to talk to us, for us to talk to about how they can help and support us. One thing I've learned along the way is the school is really enthusiastic, but to begin with, it wasn't as environmentally friendly, and lots of things came wrapped in plastic. But personally, I've seen a real shift in this, and this moves really lovely onto how the catering department have done. So I think catering is a really big key point, that if you can start with that, that will really help you. They have, in my mind, made the biggest physical changes that you can see. So a really quick and easy example of this is they've changed all the plastic cutlery to wooden. This is such a really easy thing to change, but helps so much. And the school meals are now in cardboard containers instead of when I first joined in year 7 in polystyrene. Another really simple effect that you could do is switching from little sachets of tomato ketchup to the pots. Now, I'm not sure if the school has temporarily stopped doing this due to COVID, but I'm sure as soon as things start to go back on the right direction, that will come back in. So these are the main things I have done within the school, and it might give you some ideas of what you can do as well.
That's amazing. Thanks, Hattie. So I'm really interested to know how you sort of started in this process. So to see that those changes have been made within your school is really great, and the fact that the school supported you when you wanted to run some sort of convening events to discuss these issues. What was it that sort of do you feel attracted them to support you in that, and what sort of led to the things that you were raising being adopted by the school? Is it just that they hadn't thought about them before, and when you raised them, they just agreed they were a good idea, or did you put any pressure on? Was there anything that kind of helped to persuade?
There's one thing to really remember when campaigning at school and trying to bring about change. You want to be firm, but you don't want to come across as either being annoying or being too firm. So you want to draw people in, and you want people to join you on this instead of thinking, whoa, that's really overwhelming. You're throwing so many things at me. I just don't really know where to start. So I think one good thing that I've done, and this is a really good tip if you want to start off, is to start small. You know, work your way up. Trust me, I've got a to-do list about the size of my arm, but nobody gets up in the morning and does everything on their list. It's a huge thing to take on, so please don't feel overwhelmed and start slowly. And I think that's the thing that really joined the school on board, was really simple, cost-effective ways that they can make change. And remember that cost. I did a survey, which I will come on to in a minute, throughout all the teaching heads of departments and and teacher heads of years. And one thing that came up a lot was cost. So that is one thing to really keep in mind, is if it can save the school money, then that is a really good place to start, and to just build your way up. Start small. You don't have to take over the world in one day.
I think that's a really good first top tip to take away. So yeah, small steps moving in the right direction can really make the difference, because I guess when you've started to have some small changes take place, people are sort of familiar with why those kinds of things are important, and they'll become more and more likely to listen when you're talking about bigger things. That's a really good tip. So I'm really interested as well to know in this kind of approach to try and get the school to take more action and to organize things at school, to what extent were you part of a group of students? Did you bring the student body along with you, or did you feel like a little bit like you were flying solo?
At the start, it was more like flying solo. However, the school have been really helpful holistically for me. So that means they checked up on a lot with how I was doing with the WWF and emails and stuff like that. However, I am in the process of trying to set up a group. And I think that's another really important thing. If you're starting this on your own and you feel like there's nobody else there, see if you can find a teacher that will support you. That is such a helpful thing. If you can find a passionate teacher that can help you and support you with sending emails and driving change in the school, that is a really good thing to get going. And then once you have that, find other people with like-minded mind to you. So not only is this good for your mental health, but it's so good for feeling empowered. It's so nice to find your tribe of people that you can understand what you're thinking, and you can move change together. So it can drive bigger impacts and have a bigger impact on the school. This can also help with your mental health, and tackle it by yourself is so hard. And so by surrounding yourself with with other people with the same passion as you, it can be so much help.
That's great, thank you. And I'll just say before I ask the next question, we've got about sort of 8 minutes left. If anyone's watching the live stream and you're kind of sparking off any questions for Hattie, do put them into the chat. They'll get fed through to us here, and we can see if we can cover those as well. Yeah, Hattie, I think it's really inspiring what you've kind of done off your own bat here, and I know when you first started, those first activities in your school was before you joined WWF UK as a youth ambassador. What was your first sort of what first pushed you into wanting to do this, and where did you get the kind of information to feel confident that you were taking the right approach to start with?
For me, I've always been connected to nature. Nature's always been such an important part of my life. Ever since I was young, I've done scouting, and I've had incredible opportunities to go to nature camps, and the summer solstice and the winter solstice, and all of these amazing times where I learned from older generations. And I think that's one really important thing, is even in today, it's very much old and young, but I do feel that if young and old work together, it can be really helpful. So it's always been a big part of me. And when I saw the strikes happening, I was like, I do feel that locally I can make a difference. Also, I have been running a survey around the school for the teachers. So if you want some ideas, this is personal to my school, so your school might be different, but this might be a nice thing if you could do to send out, just to kind of get the gist of how people feel around your school. So if I read out some of the questions, and then that can kind of guide you. So question 1 was, do you feel like the school is more environmentally aware over the last 12 months? Now, out of 14 people, 10 said yes and 4 said no. So this is good to hear. This is good to hear that over the 12 months that the school has been making change, people have been seeing effects and they have thought that it's actually taking control. Also, question 2 was, steps have you taken to improve? So teachers personally, they have a really big, massive input into how with it. So I wanted to kind of understand what they have done to improve and also what we can do as well. So there was lots on physical stuff. So there was loads about paper. There was recycling and trying to use less paper as they possibly can. And one thing that I noticed with this, it was all cost efficient. So it was nothing really that costed the school money. It was very simple things like turning the lights out, which will save the electricity bills. So there was lots of stuff on this. Question 3, which very well links to the WWF and how you can get support from the WWF, is national campaigns. Now, the WWF has loads of these which you can get involved with in your school. And that was one of the questions I asked was, have you done any national campaigns? And all of them said no, but the desire to change and desire to use them was really good. Question 4 was, have you gone outside your classroom to teach in green and blue areas during COVID-19 or during using the community's local resources? Now, 6 people said yes and 9 said no. So this is something that we're going to build on a lot. And I think the biggest barriers there were, and like how we can get people on board, is having clear goals. Like, it's really important to know exactly what you want to do and when you want to do it. It can feel very overwhelming going into this and kind of not having a clear idea of what you want to do. So my advice is write a to-do list out, write everything that you want to change and start one at a time. That very much links to what I said earlier with taking your time on this, and it's not something that's going to happen overnight. That's most of the stuff from the surveys. However, the last thing was about what is the biggest barrier, and there was lots of this on cost. So it was a lot about money, which I thought was very interesting, bearing in mind a lot of the other stuff wasn't cost efficient, so it was nothing that used money. So this is something that I'm going to really take into consideration, and I advise that you do as well. So really think about how it can save the school money and time, and also breaking down that stigma of nature being not cool. There's a lot about the environment being seen as not the sad, a bit sad, or not the coolest thing in the world, or you're just a bit of a hippie. So that's one thing that I would really say, to break this down and get rid of the stigma, and that can be really done well by creating a group and think outside the box when doing this.
Great, thanks, Hattie. So we've just got 2 minutes left and some lovely questions have come in. So the first one, which I think is a really nice one to start with, is in your experience of doing all this, what's the aspect of this work that you've most enjoyed? Where have you got the most sort of pleasure out of doing this?
I think it's seeing a change in mindset. The physical things are amazing, but when you start seeing the environment come up in conversations and come up in meetings, that is really nice. Because when I started in year 7, although there was some talk of it, now I really do see a bigger shift in how people think, and it's coming up more in meetings. And if you can do that in student meetings, eventually it will come up to teaching staff and the senior leadership team.
Brilliant. Yeah, seeing results must be so satisfying.
Yeah.
And we might only have time for this question now, unless it's a very quick answer, which is, did you do anything at primary school, or was this something you started doing at secondary?
I think I became a lot more confident in secondary to speak up for what I believed in, and had not the opportunity, because I did have the opportunity in primary school, but I felt there was a lot more I could implicate. And I'm not saying that there isn't in primary school, but so secondary school was kind of really where I started speaking up as I got a lot more confident. However, that doesn't mean there weren't things at my primary school. And now I'm actually going and trying to connect with my old primary school and get them on board as well, which is really lovely, so that you can work with younger people. Because if you start in primary school, then they already have the mindset to go up into secondary school, to have that idea of, okay, this is really good. How can we make this environmental, and how can we bring the environment into this? So that's one thing that I've been trying to do, is work with younger local primary schools, and then they can then take over in year when they come up into secondary school.
That's fantastic. And I think that's a lovely thing for any secondary school student to think about doing, because you've become such a role model for the students in that primary school, particularly if it's your old primary school.
So nice to connect with local schools as well and build a community.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Hattie. So I think there's some really strong takeaways there for anyone watching, and yeah, would really love to see some more student-led action over the coming year.
Thank you. I hope this helps everyone.